Bullshit.
It's the No BS Marketing Show. I'm Dave Mastovich, and today we have a special guest on the show. It is Annie Spewak, and she is our new content marketing specialist at Mastovich. She's been with us for a little over a month. She's going to work quite a bit on the No BS marketing platform, which includes the keynote, the workshop, the blog, the email blast, and the podcast. So Annie, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dave. I'm glad to be here.
Let's give the folks a little bit of background first. I'll tell you how we found her. We basically use Predictive Index, and we built what's called a job pattern where the four of us that are involved with the content marketing specialist position all took the PI to see what that job might look like. We then went to two of the gurus of Predictive Index in the Pittsburgh and Cleveland region. They tweaked it slightly and compared it to a national one, but then they also said they added the Dave Mastovich factor, which I guess is, they didn't elaborate, so I don't know if that's good or bad. I'm sensing it's probably bad. So we then advertised for the position, received an overwhelming response of 544 candidates, which kind of freaked me out. Went through those candidates and narrowed it down to a group that were first contacted by somebody here for a quick telephone interview. And once we got to where we thought about a dozen or so candidates, we asked them to send us job samples, which were in depth, asking them to give us a little bit of detail of what their real time spent on the project, what the deadline was, what the goals were, the targets. So immediately a number of people didn't bother because that was hard work. And then we also asked that group to send us to complete the Predictive Index survey. And as we got through, say, the first 7 or 8 of those, they were not even close to the job pattern. The samples were okay. And my PI gurus were like, you can't really bring someone in and go against the science if they're the opposite of what the person's makeup should be, what would energize and drain them, because we know what the position is going to do. And that's what Predictive Index enables you to do. It brings a science to your hiring and your retention and your team building by having you know what the person's natural energy, energizing things, and natural draining things are. So the person that would match this job pattern was based on what their tasks are going to be here and what they're going to be doing every day. So I wanted to bring in people because I started getting scared because we weren't getting anybody's job pattern matched. And Annie was on the list to be interviewed and went through and did really well in a telephone interview. So her PI came in, and lo and behold, it matched up really well. So we said, okay, that's great. That's our first screening, is a telephone screening plus this science. We brought her in, and she knocked the interview out of the park. Everybody loved her. So we then made an offer. She pondered that and put me through the ringer and then decided to accept the job. And so that's how we got you. So Annie, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Now, let's hear the other side of that. What was it like being the candidate?
Oh, the candidate was interesting. I've only had to take 2 sort of personality tests, if you will. And the PI test I found was much better. You said it wouldn't take more than 5 or 10 minutes. Don't stress about it. The other part that I thought was pretty interesting was that you did ask for the samples. And you didn't just ask for, hey, send me a PDF with like 3 things you've written. It was, tell me how long this actually took you, what your deadline was, and also provide the sample. And so I thought it was cool that you were looking into this position, so intently, because I knew that you really cared about what you were getting out of this role. And then, of course, I came in, we met, we talked a lot about sports, a lot about PI, of course, what the job was, and it was pretty fun. Second interview, also very fun. Got to meet Paul and all the senior leaders, Benita as well, and Mike. Of course, you can't forget Gaddy. And that was also a great experience as well.
Well, the thing about the samples and everything, there's 2 things. I was actively involved in this search because this person has to work a lot with me. So I thought, I know I've got my quirks and my demands. And so I thought, well, I want to make sure this person meets me and we click, because as you've already done in a short time, as you've given me ideas for content, you've challenged some of my content. We've worked through ideas to change the workbook for our Vistage workshops. And we're going to do a webinar together that we're working on. So I was more involved on this search than I normally would be. And I put in that level of detail because when we did the predictive index, what we found over the years is we've had some really good people, good character people that we stay in touch with, that we're still friends with and we still work with on side jobs, or they brought us in. We have one person who was here for a while and they brought us in when they landed another job. But we didn't do a good enough job on the front end of saying, this is exactly what we're looking for. Let's evaluate based on someone's samples of what that was, and let's tie some science to it. So we felt that even though, I jokingly said when you started, I said, she could be an axe murderer, but we have some science behind it. So now we feel we have some science behind it. We're excited that you're here. How's the first month gone?
First month has been great. It's been a lot of fun, lots of energy, curveballs, which I love. I think that that's what one of my deciding factors was here, is that you said every day will probably be different. You will run on the fly and you'll learn and we'll onboard you well, but you'll make an immediate impact. And that so far has been very true. It's been awesome.
Part of the onboarding, folks, was she had to listen to every podcast. Oh, how painful that had to be. Again and again, the repetition. I mean, the guests were great, but there's a whole lot of repetition. So, but we felt strongly that, again, with things we've learned, where mainly Mike Gaddy and I have learned, where over the years we haven't done our best to put that person in the best position possible. Now, there have been times that there wasn't the effort as well, and the person maybe wasn't as into it as they could have been, but we still said, yeah, but you really need to onboard longer. We needed to make sure the onboarding was a month, and we need to make sure that things like all of our content was listened to. Not all of it. You don't have to listen to it. We're not going to checklist. I'll say, did you listen to episode 207? But we've had people who worked with us for like 9 months, and they didn't even really understand what Hit the Bullseye was on the show. And I was looking at them like, have you not listened to the show? I mean, I'm not saying because it's my show. It's like your company's show. How could you not have listened to like at least 20 episodes? So we just said, let's make the onboarding, all the blog posts, the Vistage workshop stuff, the podcast episodes, listen to all that, spend time with each of the 4 senior leaders, spend time with Mike Maz in the Johnstown office, spend time with Allie and Millie via the phone since they're in the Long Beach location. And so we're hopeful that that's got you to a comfort level.
It definitely has. It's really helped a lot.
Now, talk about your passion. Your passion is content, and you've already, in a very early part of your career, have already done some side hustle content, which, as anyone that's heard me speak or has had a class with me, I've always said, once you're in college, heck, even high school, start doing something content-wise that you're passionate about, whether it's, I joke about Alec, my son, but when he was 13 or 14, he was doing trick shot videos, and he ended up getting on ESPN for doing trick shot videos that he actually took a high level of creative aspect to and created these trick shot videos that were really good. Well, he should actually tout that more. That's the first that I've brought that up since he was like 14, and he should be touting that more. You had already done some things in high school and college, and you built content and you created content. You had enough content that you impressed us, and now you're creating content here. Just talk about your philosophy on content, what got you inspired to be a content creator, and your philosophies overall.
So I think from an early age, we probably should have known that I loved content. I was always walking around with a video camera, filming horrible music videos by myself with my friends, maybe something I shouldn't admit out loud, but it's come a long way. It was something that it always felt inspiring to me, whether it was for class, then that turned professional from academic, or even just personal. It was a way for me to express myself, but also I said, you know what? I love this. I love creating content that's both, audio, visual, written. And I thought, if I love this so much, and my other passion is people and connecting with people, as you know, from my PI, that's what drives me, is connections and relationships and talking. And I can combine that with content. Why don't I make a career of it? And so fast forward, that's what brought me here. And I always thought that content should be fun and that it should also be informative depending on what you're doing, but it should be representative of who you are or who your business is. And so that's kind of what led me to that.
Well, interesting things about content, little things connect with people and they matter. So I will tell you, whenever someone would apply, and if someone's young and listening to this, or it doesn't matter what your age is, but if you're looking to go and apply for jobs, understand what we're doing as the people that are hiring you. So any one of those candidates, what we did was we did our initial screen of those 544, and the number is just staggering to me. It's flattering to me. I'm like, that many people wanted to work here. But once Mike and others got that screen down to a manageable amount, I went through and scanned, and I very quickly said, just my gut instincts are these, say, 20. Well, then Mike and I basically just said, let's just go and spend 10 minutes with each person, and we would go on and we Google them and we go look at their LinkedIn page. And you had this website blog of your own that has a cool thing that showed your realness, your fun aspect. You come out like in the water on this tube and it just, the water then hits. And I just said, I liked that. Plus I could see you had written something. So I said, okay, this is definitely someone I want to talk to, just because just your own website having enough of uniqueness to it. But I didn't want someone that was a creative on this position. I didn't want someone that is a designer, and I didn't want someone that is a videographer. So I said, this person's more like what we're looking for, but had the initiative to actually go and do something on the creative side, but doesn't want to be a full-time video person. So talk about that. When did you decide you wanted to take and and I know a lot of college students will say, well, I have a website now, but it's crap. So talk about when you started to do that, how you made it so it told your story in a compelling way.
So one of my mentors who has made an unbelievable impact on me was a college professor who we've talked about. Her name is Dr. Jabro. I took her for every class I could possibly take because I knew that she would make me work. She would challenge me. She would force me to get outside the box that we all think within. And for our capstone class, that if you ask any senior at Robert Morris who is in this major, they will say, oh, ComSem, and they get really nervous and everyone kind of clams up. Even when you have already taken it, it's like PTSD. You're like, oh God, I had to plan this event and Dr. Jabro made me work so hard and I had to network with real professionals. But one part of that class was that she forced us to figure out how to build a website, to host anything that we wanted to professionally on there that we thought would help us, gain employment. And so that's sort of how it started. It was Dr. Jabro encouraging us and grading us on this portfolio. And it turned into a bit of a passion project for me. Again, that's a way where I can sort of host both my professional and personal sort of creations on there. And a lot of the times those two tie together, since, your professional skills are how you make your personal expression. And so it went from that. And when I was applying to places and I was utilizing that, a lot of the talking point was about my website and not necessarily my resume, which was fine. It was, hey, so why did you make this website? And the first thing that you said was, I read your blog, and God we trust, everyone else bring data. And I think it speaks volume that you use PI about Mass Solutions, because you create strategy on Intel. You understand your customer opportunity. You use data to make strategy and make decisions and then go to market. And so when we connected over that piece, I thought, wow, this is really cool. Like, this just reinforces everything Dr. Jabro has put me through. I've taught a small lecture at Robert Morris since I've graduated on e-portfolio building. And I use, cases like this personally, where one reason why you wanted to even have a conversation with me was that I made this website, and it could have been, a better website. Sure, I'm not a web builder, I'm not a web designer, but you took interest in it, and it reaffirms that it's important to keep that updated. It's important to continue adding to it, no matter where you are in your career, especially early on. You also told the story on your website about yourself that was real, and so what I mean by that is I wasn't looking for. Like, we connect on athletics. We both play collegiately and we both coach. So that's fine. But that wasn't what I was looking for. That isn't why I interviewed you. I liked the whole website of, like, you could tell the family mindset of yours. You could tell this. And I'm not saying someone has to show that. I'm saying you, listener, have to show you. And if you're not into sports, don't ever put anything on there about sports. If you're into music, then talk about music, because guess what? I love that too. And people are complex. We're all pretty damn complex. So don't think like, wow, Dave Mastovich is over here in this box, so he's not going to like this. And then the second thing that you did was, out of those people that we asked to send samples, a high percentage didn't even bother once we said samples. And I purposely gave the specificity that you described because I knew I wanted to see if someone would take direction and say, like, okay, because even the people that sent them didn't do what you did. Two people, you and one other one, actually followed the directions. And I tell this to my college classes that I teach, and I tell it when I speak to business groups of students and so forth. You have to show you can take direction, because what happens, what you're bringing in right now, the strength that you or anyone your age is bringing in is energy. Second strength you're bringing in is you are going to know social media, digital media better than the average person that's
a generation older than you. So that's your strengths. Your weaknesses are you have limited amount of experience. So if you can't take direction, then we can't invest in you, because right now we're investing in you. You're doing great work, but we're investing in you. Like, I'm stopping what I'm doing, saying, I better spend a half hour with Annie to talk about this, see where her head is. And Mike's doing the same thing. And so is Bonita, and so is Paul. So is Mike Maz. So you showed you could follow direction, which was like about 4 steps. It said, like, what was the project? Who was the target? What was the deadline? How much real time? Because that's key. Because someone might say this was a 2-week deadline, but they spent 27 hours in those 2 weeks. I needed to know, what can you do in 2 hours? What can you do in 1 hour? What can you do in 3? Because you've seen already, I'm not going to be able to give you 12 real hours to write something. I'm going to say, go take a stab at a blog. You have about an hour, hour and a half. It doesn't have to be perfect. I'm going to respond to it. So you showed you could take direction, and a lot of people didn't.
Yeah, I think that is something, again, sports gave me, but also college itself. I had classes that said, in the rubric, right when you started, or that first syllabus week, it was, if you can read directions and follow the rubric, you will be fine in this class. And sometimes you're cool with that as a student, other times you aren't. And I figured out quickly, read the directions fully, follow it fully, and go from there.
Well, the other thing that anyone in the workplace can take, but especially young people, what you've done really well, and we will have to listen back to this so we both adhere to what we're saying right now. What you have done really well is you've taken direction, and you've also taken constructive feedback, because I sat down with you and I said, hey, here's the one thing based on our conversations in the interview, based on your first weekend, based on the science. And I sat down and said, the science says this. This isn't me, but I also can give you some examples. It's not being critical. It's saying, here's some constructive feedback, because we all are who we are. So there's things that I am going to naturally do that aren't going to fit in the environment, and I have to work around myself. I have to have self-awareness to say, this is something I don't like to do, so I subconsciously put it off. How do I fix it? So you and I have talked about that, and you were willing to listen and not get defensive. And that's really a strength, because I obsessed over how I was going to present that to you, because I thought, man, this could be, she'd get negative about it, she'd get defensive. And you took to it and immediately said, I'm going to try that. I'm going to do this. Let's try this app. Let's do this. Let's do that. That's a testament too, because a lot of people don't listen well to that and they get defensive.
Absolutely. I think, I'm early in my career, and I'm very passionate about marketing and PR as well. And I think of that as an opportunity to learn from a really great leader, you, and also a great marketer. And so I know that my weaknesses are anything with numbers, anything that is super, super detailed, it will drain me, just like you said in the PI. And so if there are, short little hacks like Grammarly, which is great, and I appreciate your suggestion on that, then I'm going to do it. I'm also going to, push myself to break those weaknesses, or just at least lessen them, especially, when you're passionate about where you work, who you work for, who you work with. I think that definitely helps.
One of the things that you've brought up on a couple times, and we have to do a whole show on this and some blog posts and so forth, but talk about your feelings about AI. And you said how, even in the interview, you said, have you thought about doing a blog on this? Have you thought about doing a show on this? So talk about that, because I was impressed that you had this passion that you were able to speak very intelligently about, and you're still pushing us to do. So I want to make sure we get it on the air, so it forces me to do it.
So artificial intelligence is something that I became very interested in. As a self-proclaimed techie, I think that anything to do with technology right now is a really great part to be a part of, a great thing to be a part of, I should say. And so with artificial intelligence, I think that it can just change everything that we're doing with marketing. I think that when using AI in certain marketing platforms, I'll use Google and Facebook, for example. It's that you and I right now are going to be talking about certain products, maybe like Grammarly, and we might see an ad in like 30 minutes that will be Grammarly. And it's not because we're talking about it. That's not how it works. But we'll feel as though we've been intruded upon. And I think that artificial intelligence, when it comes to marketing tactics such as digital and social paid advertising, it can really eliminate that feeling of intrusiveness. And so I think that when you deploy AI on an Instagram platform, we're getting the opportunity as marketers and as brands to better understand our customer and who they are as a person. And of course, that's what we're focused on right now, is personalizing each of those touches as brands and what they're interested in, what they want to see, how they want to be advertised to. I don't want to say sold to, because social is not for selling. And so I think that when we use AI, that we can really, cut down on our time spent on it and drilling segments and figuring out how to position better. And I think that AI will have that power soon, and that we should all start to at least look into it and appreciate it at what it is. But I think it has the power in the next few years really to change our industry.
I agree about making sure it's not seen as invasive or creepy. I hear so many compliments about remarketing because you went on the computer, look at something for somebody else in your family, then you start getting a bunch of ads for that. And that's BS marketing. So what you're saying is AI is going to get better and take it to a level where it's not BS marketing, and it's more about them, more about the target audience, because that's one of the things that I'm strong about, is that I think that the litmus test of the eye test, or whatever you want to call it, in sports and in marketing still does ring true most of the time, in that, remarketing, from the time I read about it 10 years ago, I said, this is just not really going to be seen positively. And it's the same thing with athletics. As much as we can bring the quantifiable science to never shooting a mid-range shot in basketball, because that's evil, which is stupid and wrong, by the way, and to the baseball and so forth, the eye test still has to be a part of that. Now, what I love about metrics is the eye test shouldn't be all of it, because I think there's so many lazy people in marketing, and there are lazy people in sports, because there's lazy people in every profession. So that lazy coach who just uses the eye test, she's wrong, as well as the one that just does the analytics, she's wrong as well. So I think that the combination of the art and science and all this stuff is critical. And I like where you're going with that, because right now I think it's more science. And I think with AI, you're saying it could combine the art and science.
Absolutely. Definitely has that power.
So this is Annie Spewak, the new content marketing specialist at Mass Solutions. She's going to be highly involved in the whole no bullshit marketing platform, as she is today with the podcast, but coming up with ideas for shows, talking to guests, getting guests on the show, helping with the No BS Marketing Keynote, No BS Marketing Half-Day Workshop, the blog, and everything else tied to no bullshit marketing. So excited to have you aboard and your first appearance on the No BS Marketing Show.
Thank you, Dave. Really excited to be working here finally and be on the show.
She'll be back, folks. She'll be on quite a few times. In fact, we've got some cool stuff coming up with Jagoff podcast. There's a big Pittsburgh business event that's going to showcase our show, the Jagoff show. What's the other ones? There's a couple other ones. Nan on Divorce. Nan on Divorce. So Annie and I will be at that event. So you'll probably get some airtime there. Annie will be out interviewing people. And from time to time, she'll be back on the show. So your first appearance, you have to catch Tom Rodriguez. Tom Rodriguez, the inimitable Tom Rodriguez, or T-Rod as I call him, has been on 4 shows, and Carter's been on 4 shows. So you have 3 more to catch those guys.
Oh, I'm going to do it. I'm going to catch them.
Alec doesn't know that Carter's been on one more than him, because if he did, he'd come running right now. He's highly competitive. All right, to our listeners, thanks for listening to the No BS Marketing Show. Remember to go to masssolutions.biz, sign up for the Weekend Review. It's a timely compilation of all the cool messaging and marketing tips that we've come up with for that week. It's short, can be read in 2 minutes or less, and we always say it can trigger bright ideas for you. In fact, it used to be called Light Reading, playing off of the S in our logo, and Bright Ideas and Solutions. Sign up for that. And remember, ask yourself, what's the big idea? And build your story around the answer. It's all about bold solutions, no BS.